And we could talk to Dr. Chloe Carmichael, who is the author of a new book called Nervous Energy, Harness the Power of Your Anxiety. Chloe, I think you're talking directly to me and for sure to Marcus.
I think the fact that she's on mute is giving me more anxiety, but now she's ready.
Hi, here I am.
With her lovely background, her Zoom background is good with the book floating.
Yeah,
Dr.
thank
Chloe
you.
Carmichael, look at you, such talent. So talk about this, because it is true that a lot of us are very stressed out. A lot of us are very nervous, and we don't always know what to do with that anxiety. And if you can harness it and sort of use it for good, then you can be incredibly productive, right?
Yeah, you definitely can, Jenny. I think a lot of people do feel like they just are supposed to get rid of the anxiety, and they miss the gift of anxiety, which is that it does give us a little zing.
Or a lot of zing. Or if you're Marcus, I mean, Marcus is perpetually champing at the bit. Like he's always like I'm geared up to go. Like he's like Jodie Foster in Contact. Okay to go. But nah, for real. Like he's always at the ready to jump right in. But I think it's propelled by this ish that we all have. I mean, I have it too.
Right. I think a lot of very busy, driven, high-functioning people do. That was actually what inspired me to write the book, is I was working with all these like type A, super driven New Yorkers, and they were all saying, oh, I've got anxiety, but they would say it like they kind of liked it. They were like, oh, I'm kind of OCD, or, oh my gosh, if any little thing goes wrong, I have a panic attack. And you could tell that they kind of realized like
my biggest weakness is that I'm type A and I can't calm down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I know it can be kind of funny, but I actually realized that they did have a point. And so we just had to figure out how to make sure that they had a really good strategy for how to use that energy.
Yes. And so you talk about this with these 9 tools, with these step-by-step instructions that'll help people harness this nervous energy. So where do we begin?
Well, here's a good one that I like. So the mental shortlist. So say, for example, that Marcus had something on his mind. And let's say he's like a dog with a bone. When something on his mind, he just cannot let it go.
Correct.
Yes. So, and that can be a blessing or a curse, right? So if it's a project we're working on and it's stuck in our head, that's actually great. But once the project is over, or like, we're stuck thinking about an old ex, we just have this thing on our mind that we need to get it off our mind. So the mental shortlist is great for that one. What we do is we come up with 5 things that we know would be really good for our brain to like pivot onto instead of the old topic. It could be anything from like, birthday and anniversary shopping lists to like, weekend plans, or even like going through your meditation thing that you keep meaning to do. Whatever it is, you just have a good list of 5 things that you pivot onto whenever you feel tempted to ruminate about the old thing.
Right. It's a replacement mechanism, which I think is really smart, because I think many people need that, because we ruminate about everything. I mean, whether you're ruminating, like in your example about an ex, or you're ruminating about the dinner you ate the night before that was too many calories, or you're ruminating because you didn't send that email as timely as you would have liked to, or whatever it might be. You missed an opportunity. Like the list could be endless, but if you have a go-to list in place, it's like with anything else, it's a habit, it's a practice that you then have put in place for those moments.
Are these, is the list things that are help you relieve that stress and tension?
Not necessarily. It's things that you can think about instead. So like when you have something stuck in your head that's no longer helpful to be thinking about anymore, and it's like you tell yourself not to think about it, but it's like saying don't think about pink elephants. It just reminds you of it. So it's like, I compare it to having a fridge full of really good, healthy snacks that are attractive and taste great. It makes it a lot easier to refuse the old bag of Oreos when you've got a fridge full of really good stuff all ready to go.
Yeah, I like that. I totally agree. By the way, I couldn't agree with that more. That is one of those things that I say all the time. Like if I have fruits and vegetables in my fridge, chances are I'm going to grab them. And if I don't, then I'm going to grab the brownie that I have. It's like, one
Well,
or the other.
especially
Yeah.
for strong-willed people, we have a very tenacious mind sometimes. So that's why we need the mental shortlist when we're stuck in a groove on something that we shouldn't be.
Right. Okay, that's great. And let's talk about some other, because I know you'll talk about some of them here, because we want people to buy the book Nervous Energy, Harness the Power of Your Anxiety, which is out now by Dr. Chloe Carmichael, who you could follow online at Dr. Chloe _ drchloe.com, and then, of course, on her YouTube, Dr. Chloe Carmichael. So what are some other things we can do?
Sure. Well, I also, one I really like is called the to-do list with emotions. So we all have a to-do list, right? And I found that a lot of really high-performing, high-energy people, we get into our to-do list and we like to knock stuff out. But sometimes we get almost like a hamster on a wheel where we're just not even really connecting with the meaning of all the stuff that we're doing, or we suddenly just find ourselves procrastinating and we're not sure why. So the to-do list with emotions solves for those. What we do is we look at the to-do list and then we think about the emotions that come up with each of the things on our to-do list, especially if it's something we're procrastinating with. And for example, I had a client that couldn't do his grocery shopping and he's like kicking himself. Why can't I get it together? And then we realized that the emotion around that for him was actually loneliness because his ex-wife used to do it. And so he felt like a failure. But the good news is that once you identify the emotional block, it's super simple then to layer in some self-care. All he had to do was just plan a catch-up call with a buddy during grocery shopping. And then he actually got the benefit of the anxiety, which is that it was trying to alert him that he needed more social support.
So, okay. So let's say because the to-do list thing is very interesting. I always have trouble submitting stuff, like whether it's pet insurance or regular insurance. I don't know what the emotion is around it that stops me, Dr. Chloe. This to-do list of busy work. Busy work drives me crazy, like data entry. It freaks me out. Why?
Well, there could be a couple things. So if it were just always truly about insurance, then I would have to ask, like, is there a part of you that's afraid of disaster? And it like feels like you're acknowledging that that could be true. But if it's really truly just that it's so freaking boring, then there's another technique I talk about in the book, which is that you take your laptop to a restaurant and you knock out all your boring tasks while you have a really good meal.
It's really helpful.
So in other words, that's interesting. So in other words, yes, and that's what it is more than anything. It's those boring tasks of doing claims online and finding the information and going on, because I am convinced that and my husband works in insurance, but I am convinced that all of these companies, they want to make it hard to submit. They want to make it as annoying as it possibly can be so that we don't do it. It's designed to drive us bananas. So I need to get over myself and do it anyway.
Well, you have a couple of options, Jenny. So, I mean, another thing that if you're just noticing that you feel just an extreme amount of irritation about having to do that, then it could be just cueing you to like delegate it. There's plenty of people, like my office will do insurance claims for you, Jenny. Like we have a clinical office, like maybe as a person, I'm just kidding, but like there's
No, I know what you're saying. Right. Yeah, well, like maybe there is that. Right. And I don't even know where I would go to. Exactly. Maybe that is true. Because yes, I think you're right. Because there are some people who just do this and it's like almost they know how. It's like innate almost. And for me, I'm so clunky. It feels like I'm so clunky.
Yeah. So like when you get that information and you can really just like and kind of study it and realize like, oh, it's just so irritating because it feels like such a waste of time, then again, that's actually important information. And high functioning people can be so good at just dealing with frustration that will be like, oh, whatever, I'll just deal with it. I'll just make myself do it. Whereas actually it's better to listen to the anxiety and the frustration because sometimes it guides us to do something smarter.
What about when we find that, and this happens to me all the time, I say yes to things that then I regret, or I put myself in a situation where I have to complete a task that ultimately I'm happy to do it, but the gearing up to do it gives me so much like performance anxiety, worry that I won't get it done the right way, that it won't be good enough, that I'm not enough, like that whole list of worth issues will like come right out. So like on the to-do list, what emotion do I sort of do I put there? How do I label
Yes.
that?
Right. Okay. So if you're looking at something on your to-do list and you're realizing that the resistance around it is feeling like unprepared, or, like maybe you don't quite have the skills to do it with confidence, that's
Yep.
really good information as well. And so sometimes that's either stimulating you to get some training and get some support, or if you feel like maybe you actually do have the skills and you're just being hard on yourself, then that would stimulate you to use another technique in the book, which is called thought replacement. So if you have an internal monologue that's always saying things like, oh, I can't do such and such, I'll never figure it out, then you would have a thought replacement for yourself. Like, I am Jenny Hutt. I'm a super confident and capable business person. And in fact, the whole world knows it.
Oh God.
And
Right.
because the whole world actually does know it, right? Because of your show. So the idea is that although it's frustrating when we have those kind of refrains that our mind always says, these negative things, if your mind always says them, as annoying as it is, the beauty of it is that it's predictable. If you know in advance, like what your mind always, your go-to self-sabotage statement is. So then you can counteract it by coming up with a thought replacement that's going to game, set, match it every time, right? And then you just memorize that thought replacement.
Yeah. I mean, how did you get so comfortable with being out there with sort of the stuff within your, like the brand of Dr. Chloe Carmichael? Because I think that, again, for so many of us who, even whether you work in the home, out of the home, whatever, so many of us have something that we need to either promote about ourselves, about our businesses, about our families, about our friends. And sometimes there can be this voice in us that makes us feel almost embarrassed to put it out there. And I think that becomes the block that stops us from getting done the things we want to get done. And I think that typically happens for sort of the anxious, the nervous, that type of person. So how did you move through all that to make sure you were able to get your messages out?
Sure. Well, the way I thought of it, if ever I had any kind of performance anxiety about sharing all this with the world, because I do in this book, I share even stories about my own anxiety and how I use the techniques on myself. And so whenever I felt kind of like scared that way, I just thought, I'm not writing this book, honestly, to make myself feel good. I need to share this with other people who need these techniques, who may not have the time or the budget to see me in my office. I felt like I frankly kind of owed it. I wanted to put it out there. I feel like life and the world truly have been good to me. And I just wanted to make it available and affordable for people.
I love that. Marcus, do you have any specific issue going on that maybe Dr. Carmichael could help you with?
Of course.
He's like, let me open up my list.
These are 2 lists that I wrote in the last day and a half that are full pieces of paper, because I'm old school like that. And I like to write them down because it helps me remember them. Here's an easy one to describe, at least. I don't have to go into my whole background. I can, even though I know the benefits of it, cannot bring myself to update a LinkedIn page in any way, shape, or form. And I don't even really have one. I've always gotten the types of jobs and things I want based on my resume and my charm. And I never really did a LinkedIn. And I know that it would benefit me because I know lots of people in my industry that I've lost contact with, that I can probably reconnect with. I need to do it this weekend.
Okay. So a couple of ideas then for you. So one thought would be, why don't you pretend like you're doing it for somebody else? That's like a nice way to depersonalize it. So what if somebody you really cared about said, Marcus, I just need you to like update this for me. Can you do it, please? Right. And so there's something about doing it for ourselves that can feel, I don't know, like almost too intense. So one way is to depersonalize it by pretending that you're doing it for somebody else. Another thing you could do is just take it in little pieces. So just on your good old piece of paper that you like so much, write down just all the things about yourself that you think are pretty cool that should be added to LinkedIn. And then you can either on a separate day, just upload them into LinkedIn so you don't have to think about it at the same time you're typing it, or you could give it to somebody else and say, hey, like I put this stuff down, like I just can't seem to do it. Would you mind like doing it for me?
Because some people are a little some people, like Jenny was saying, are just better at certain tasks.
Mm-hmm.
You were both saying. And my wife happens to be someone who's good at tasks like that. So maybe I can do a very serious rough draft, and then with her help, actually post this positive new LinkedIn. What do you think?
Let me tell you
Exactly.
something. Hold on. Marcus, we had Wendy Weiner on. Remember we had Wendy, the writing guru, on?
I do.
Her
Yes.
whole thing was she can fix anyone's LinkedIn page. She was on the air offering to help you. Literally an expert. Literally what she does, she offered to help you. I was here. It was on the air. So like
You're
you
right.
have people at the ready who will help you. It's just you're for some reason averse to pulling that trigger.
Well, I did hear you say one thing, Marcus, that stuck in my ear a little bit. So you said that up until this point, you've always been able, just by your charm, to just make things happen. And so I
know.
wonder if there's
I
a
know.
part.
When I said it, it was revealing to me. I've done a lot of work.
So I wonder if there's a part of you that's like secretly thinking that like doing the LinkedIn is almost like a sign that you weren't charming enough. So I would give you a new like thought replacement, which is I am so charming. And when it hits LinkedIn, it's just going to burn the whole site up.
I mean, you do this professionally, so you know what words to listen to. But I've done a lot of work myself in the last 10 years. So when I say things, am aware, oh, that was revealing to me, obviously
Right.
to you as well. I have a certain desire to do it the old way. I don't want to be on these, fancy digital platforms. I want to be like Howard Stern, who did it in the old days and didn't have to do all this stuff. You know what I mean? So there's some sort of reluctance to do it the way
But
everyone
isn't
else.
that? But hold on, I don't think that's what it is, and I'm not the psychologist. That's Chloe. That's Dr. Chloe. I'm
We're
just
both
me,
amateurs
and I
both
know
geniuses.
you.
We're
But
kind of
but
psychologists.
Marcus, I would say, and what do you think about this philosophically? And again, we're talking nervous energy, harness the power of your anxiety by Dr. Chloe Carmichael. But what about the fact that, Marcus, you don't have to like it, you just have to do it? Like, I think there are some things in life that you just have to power through, like knowing that maybe it's not like the most fun, or maybe you're resistant and you can deal with figuring out why you're resistant. But like, it's 2021. And if you want to have a bigger presence, you got to put your presence out there. And one of those ways professionally is LinkedIn.
I want to make it fun for him. So could you think to yourself, like, get my old school kicks on the new school airwaves? You know what I mean? Like, either like find a way to make it fun for yourself, or just write down the old school stuff and ask someone else to upload it for your old school self.
I like that.
I mean, you could do you could make your page look the way you wanted it to look. There's no rules about sort of how it, I mean, it should be a little professional, but you can show it to you.
Right.
Like, that's
I don't
okay.
I don't want to give up the thing that I feel makes me unique. And that's always been.
I'm going to let Dr. Chloe Carmichael talk about that, because honestly, what makes you unique is you, like, you're already unique, right?
Well,
Right, Dr.
actually-
Carmichael, like, no matter what.
Yes, but you could also put that even in your LinkedIn headline. You could be like old school, such and such, like however you would describe yourself. You could literally put that in your headline.
That's true. I had to do this like newsy broadcasty thing once where I had to sound like an NPR reporter, and I was really scared because I don't like to sound that way. So I was all like, da 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 da. And then when I played it for the people I was working with, they were all like, what the hell are you talking about? You sound exactly the same like you always sound, even though it's excellent work. So maybe Jenny's right that I can't really not be me.
Yeah, you couldn't change it if you tried.
Right. That's so smart, because you are you. You're right, Dr. Chloe. I think that's also all of us. We're like, oh, I better not do this because it might be outside my wheel, or not really in my lane. But you're like, just like, who designates what lane you're in?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I love that you're able to do that, Mark, is like you were able to just really notice what the block was and talk it through and then come up with what we call the self-care plan of like, having somebody do a certain part for you or making sure that you claim your old school identity loud and clear in the headline. That is, you did the technique to-do list with emotions. You did it perfectly.
Good.
See that? Look at you doing something perfectly.
Well, 10 years of therapy will do that to you. You should have seen me before I knew Jenny. I was a wreck.
You weren't a wreck. You've never been a wreck. That's your language and nobody else's. The book
I'll make
is
it with Dr. Chloe and we can figure some more out.
when she has time, because right now her office is going to fix my insurance. The book is Nervous Energy, Harness the Power of Your Anxiety by Dr. Chloe Carmichael. You can follow Chloe everywhere at Dr. Chloe _ Check out her YouTube, Dr. Chloe Carmichael. Thank you so much for being on my show. I really appreciate it. And congratulations.
Thanks, guys. It was awesome. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Take good care. Quick break, and I'll be right back to finish up today's Friday show.
The kids are calling. We'll be right back with more Jenny Hutt.